First of all, I'd like to thank Jamin for this opportunity. He reached out to me a week ago, and I really appreciate being here today. And my topic is on racism and racial profiling. It's a very broad topic, so you can't really talk about everything in a short amount of time, so I'm going to focus specifically on Sikh Americans because I am a Sikh. So today we're going to talk about racism against one ethnicity and one religion. All right, I need a volunteer for this slide. Volunteer, Jordan. Let's go. Stand up right here. Okay, so you're going to identify for me the Muslims in this picture. Please identify who is a Muslim in this picture and point it out to the audience. Okay, correct. Anyone else?
Right here.
Okay.
And then right here.
All right. So those three?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You can have a seat now. Good job, Jordan. Well, you answered 3 correctly, but the truth is, every single individual on this slide is a Muslim. Shocking, right? They're all from different backgrounds, different ethnicities. They're not just people wearing hijabs or people of dark skin. They can be people of various ethnicities, various backgrounds. So, racism, what is it? It's prejudice or discrimination against another's race from someone else based on their feeling that their race is superior to the other. And that right there is a Sikh cartoon man. So I welcome you to the United Shades of Racism. And in this country, racism has various connotations. It's not just racist. It's not just racism. You can think of it as prejudging, bullying. Any of these terms here that are mentioned on the slide, they all mean racism. They're all different connotations of racism. So you can't just say he's being racist. You can say that he's bullying you, he's being unfair to you, etc. So some stats. Bullying of Sikh American children in America, 100%. It's a given. If you wear a turban and don a beard in America, you're going to get bullied. No question about it. And that's why it's 100%, because it is happening in this country and has happened for the past decades. And microaggressions, that is basically saying, if I'm going in the hallway, for instance, and someone says some racial slur, whispers it to me, that's microaggression. Even though it's very subtle, it is still a form of racism, it is still a form of bullying. And students of the Sikh faith, if they want to join a play, for instance, they will not get a role because all the roles in a play require a guy with blonde hair, light blue eyes, clean-shaven, short haircut. While Sikhs, they have turbans on. So there is no role for Sikh students in plays in high schools, in middle schools. And to employment. Even adults face a form of racism in getting jobs. For instance, Sikh Americans in New Jersey, majority of them have become self-employed for that exact reason, that they will not get offered a job because of how they look like. And my dad is an example of that. For instance, he was offered, he went to a job interview and he went through the meeting and the boss, the supervisor said, "Oh, you're too overqualified." What the heck does that mean? That's a good thing. He's overqualified. He meets all the criteria. You should offer him a job. But no, he is denied the job, even though it's not clearly stated. It's because of how he looks like. And that's why my dad is self-employed, for that exact reason, that majority of Sikh Americans face discrimination in the going into jobs. And that's why in New Jersey, Sikh Americans own gas stations and convenience stores for that reason, and it happens continuously. So my experience, bullying in my life is different from the thousands of Sikh students in America for a couple of reasons. First reason, my dad is extremely proactive. He's got involved in the community. He's done tremendous work for the Sikh faith in America, and that's why I turned out to be like this where I am today, because I've seen my dad do tremendous work for the community while wearing the articles of our faith. So bullying, because I grew up in a very diverse area, Voorhees is a great town. I didn't face that much bullying because of that reason. And the bullying I faced was verbal bullying. So going down the street, someone yells out, Osama, terrorist. It happens constantly. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. It happens. If you want to experience it, tie a turban on, I'll be happy to do that, and go walk out down the street and see what happens. So in my study, when I was writing my book, I wanted to give some evidence, some meaning, some background, so people just didn't say I was BSing what I was writing. So I did a survey of 1,000 sick American children across America, and I have their results in my book. So you can check it out. It's on Amazon. And had to get in that sales pitch there. So I have their answers to my survey, and majority of them said that they were bullied because of the way they look like, because of the religion they practiced. And when I got those results back, I was shocked. We're living in a country where the First Amendment in the American Constitution says freedom of religion. So why are sick American students being ostracized, bullied, targeted because of the way we look? That's completely wrong. That's bogus. So for that reason, I got motivated and I went out, wrote a book. I'm going across the country, speaking to audiences and getting the word out there. And Ms. Walker can attest to this. If you do get bullied, you do end up getting some kind of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I've interviewed 7 child psychologists, mental health professionals, and they do say that if you are bullied constantly, you will end up getting some type of PTSD. That means sick Americans have PTSD 100% because we're bullied constantly, and there's no doubt about it. So these are the 3 most recent incidents regarding racism against members of the Sikh community. On the left, that is actually a family friend of mine. He is a cardiologist based out of North Carolina. And this has just happened this week. My dad told me about this incident. And he's in his office waiting for a patient to come in so he can operate on him. And the patient is half dead. He's on a stretcher. He comes in with 2 attendees. And before Dr. Singh can even say anything, the patient says, "Hey ma'am, I don't want this Arab, I don't want this terrorist treating me." I was like, what? You're half dead and you're being racist to a doctor who's about to save your life? I'm shocked. So this is the most recent incident. On the right, that is the councilman in Hoboken. I'm actually meeting this man tomorrow at a leadership lunch conference. And just Wednesday night, I get off the phone with him, and the next day I realized that after the meeting he attended, he tweets about it. He says, I did this so-and-so in this meeting. And lo and behold, 5 minutes later, a gentleman posts this really, really shocking tweet. He says, "How the hell did Hoboken allow this guy to be a councilman? Shouldn't even be allowed in the U.S. Hashtag terrorist." There's your proof right there. And so because Raminder Palla, this councilman, is educated and he's a proud Sikh American, he replies, "Sir, I am born and raised in America. You clearly don't know what it means to be an American. Hashtag ignorant." And there's the most recent proof. On the bottom right, this gentleman was traveling in a Greyhound bus in Texas. And he so happens to pick up the phone and speaks to his mother in Punjabi. Punjabi is a language I speak, and it is a language, not a culture, not a religion. And this gentleman, after speaking, a lady behind him goes and calls the police, and says, "There's a man in front of me. He's making me feel a little uneasy, and I think he might be planning something." So right away, the cops get called over. They pull him out in handcuffs, simply because he spoke in a different language, simply because he's wearing a turban and a beard. So these are 3 very recent incidents regarding Sikh Americans. My solutions, what I did to get these facts. Like I mentioned earlier, I did a survey of 1,000 Sikh American children. I interviewed several mental health professionals. And what I recommend is that students need to be educated about the Sikh faith. And why I say that, because growing up, VMS, Eastern, I've read about the Christian faith, Judaism, Hinduism, and not about the Sikh faith at all. And I'll give you an example. I need another volunteer. Alex.
Oh, he takes photos.
Could you point out to me on this world map where Punjab is located? All right, pretty close. Punjab is actually located, you did good. Punjab is actually located northwest India, bordering Pakistan, and majority of students don't know where Punjab is. When I tell them about Punjab, they say, "Punjab, what is that? Is that a country out of is that an island based off of Australia? Is it Punjab?" It's Punjab, and it's actually a country in North India. So that's why I mentioned that the students must be educated about the faith and geography, history, all that stuff. And teacher training. Teachers need to know about this issue. For instance, I was down in Colorado, Denver, Colorado in October of 2015. And I was invited there to speak about my book and basically motivate the sick American kids there. And I'm finished with my presentation just like I'm speaking to you today. And I have 3 young, sick boys. They're like 5, 6 years old. They go to elementary school. They come up to me in tears. They're crying. And I go, was it something I said? And they say, no, that's not what it is. And I say, what's wrong? They said, it's not just our peers. It's not just our friends bullying us. It's the teachers as well. And that's what shocked me. That's what motivated me to get this book out. Because out in the West, you have teachers bullying 5-year-old kids simply because they're wearing a turban. And that's shocking. We're living in America, guys. This shouldn't be happening. I could understand if this was a third world country. It's America. This is a melting pot. This should not be happening. And then anti-bullying classes. There should be mandatory punishment for all bullies, period. They have to understand, they have to face the consequences, and yes, physical bullying does, they do have consequences for that, the HIB Act. There is no punishment, no consequence for verbal bullying. Verbal bullying cannot be stopped. It happens out in the streets, locker rooms, gyms, etc. I go down the street, someone yells out Osama, you can't stop it. My dad was playing golf at the Crescent Golf Course just this 2 weekends ago. And he's teeing off. Before he tees off, the man in a truck pulls over, rolls down the window, and says, "Hey, towelhead." This is in Voorhees. Can you believe that? It's just messed up. So that's why I'm doing all these speaking events and basically getting the word out there. I've also done plenty of research. It took me 1 year. I started in junior year. And that, as many of you know, that's the most difficult year of high school. And I took it upon myself to get this book out there. I spent long nights doing the research. I interviewed 7 mental health professionals. And I finally got the book out in November of 2015. And ever since then, slowly things have started opening up for me. I've been invited to various speaking events. And I've traveled to California, Florida, Colorado, New York, New Jersey, of course. And all these speaking opportunities, they're extremely beneficial because people get to know who the Sikhs are. 70% of Americans living in America today have no clue about the Sikh faith. Who watches The Daily Show in here? Raise your hand. All right, cool. So The Daily Show recently featured a segment on racial profiling and Sikh Americans. So one of the correspondents asked a Sikh Hollywood actor, Waris Ahluwalia, he says, "What do you think about your fellow Americans? Do you think they know about your faith?" He says, "Hell no." And then the correspondent says, "Don't sell them short. They're well aware of your faith." So then he says, "Okay, prove it." So the correspondent goes to New York City. He has a big board with him. There's a man in a turban and a beard, a Sikh man. There's a bird. There's binoculars. And then there's children like Hari Go Sikh. He goes up to a random gentleman and he says, "Can you point out the Sikh?" And he stutters and he says, "Is it the bird?" Like, are you serious? Are you out of your mind? Is it that hard? It's clear that people are ignorant today. People have no clue about the faith, and that is because of lack of education and simply ignorance. So, talking about racial profiling, I can now say that I've went through it myself. I was in Bakersfield, California, a couple weeks ago for another speaking engagement, and this is in an area where there's a lot of Sikh Americans living there in Bakersfield, and the event was great, had a great time. and I'm heading down to Bakersfield to catch my flight back home, and I get racially profiled. And I was just thinking to myself, boy, did TSA mess with the wrong sick American. And that was what was going on in my head at that time. And I'll just tell you about this experience. So I go through the normal procedures, and because I wear one of my articles of my faith is a metal bracelet which symbolizes our bond to God and to do right by our hands, and that's what signals the alarm. So he pulls me aside, he pats me down, head to toe, and then he says, well, now we have to test your turban for some explosive material. And at this point I'm like, okay, I'll do your procedures. So I asked for a self pat down, so I pat down my turban like this, and then I show him my hands so he can swab it for some explosive material. And he does so. He puts it in the scanner, and the scanner goes off. So I was like, oh, that's great. More hassle. So he takes me aside into a private screening room, and he calls down his superior. And then the superior says, well, sir, we're going to have to ask you to remove your turban. And now I'm like, shit. So he says, well, this is in our procedures, this is our protocol. We're going to have to ask you, otherwise we'll do something. And I say, well, it's not coming off. It's against my faith to remove my turban in public. And we can keep sitting here. We can keep having this nice chat. And then he says, well, okay, in that case, you're not going home. And then I was like, okay, well, that can't happen because I have school the next day. This is on a Sunday evening. And so I comply with their procedures. And before I even start unwrapping my turban, the TSA official goes, wait, sir, is there anything you want us to know before you remove your turban? And I was like, are you out of your mind? Do you actually think I'm hiding something in here that would make you ask that question to me? And these are TSA officials. These are officials that are supposedly trained to handle religious minority groups traveling across America. And so I unravel my turban. He sees my beautiful hair, which is the reason why he asked me to remove my turban in the first place. And he puts my turban through a X-ray machine to scan it. And I was like, are you serious? You want an X-ray piece of cloth? And then he goes, oh yeah, it's in our procedures. I was like, okay, yeah, right. But I didn't say that. And so he X-rays it. He wands my head. So I automatically knew that the scanner was messed up. I knew for a fact that they were racial profiling me. And I let them have it straight. I told them, when he asked me that question earlier regarding the what is underneath your turban, I told him that I've really long hair and there's something called a brain underneath. And he was red in the face, and right there they understood that they were racially profiling a sick American, and that should not happen. And the reason I'm making this such a big deal is that I haven't seen a single nun in my experience traveling in any airport and across America racially profiled and hassled by the TSA officials. It is only the Sikhs. It is only the people with turbans and beards being hassled by the TSA. And that's messed up. If you want to embarrass, humiliate Sikh Americans, why not strip the nun? Why not remove her habit? She could be hiding something underneath her habit. Who knows? It doesn't happen. So for that reason, I made this a big deal. And after that event, it actually turned out to be an educational opportunity. The Sikh community in Bakersfield had a meeting with the director of TSA, Robert Benson, and they gave him a book. They gave him my book. And now the TSA officials can read, learn, and educate, because that's what they have to do. They have to educate themselves about sensitivity. They're completely insensitive. They have no idea how to treat religious minority groups. So that was my experience with racial profiling. And these are the links. It was featured in NBC News, a couple other newspapers, and they definitely did mess with the wrong Sikh, because I made it clear that everyone should know about my experience, because majority don't know. And it's completely sad. So what I want to leave with here today is, what are each and every one of you going to do about this issue? What are each and every one of you going to do to end racism, to end any discrimination that your peers or you yourself will face? And I had an idea. And with that idea, I implemented it. I created a book. If you have an idea, go do it. Go implement it. Don't just talk about it. Don't be all talk. That's not what this is about. Take your idea and actually go forth. Go implement it. And then that way you can do great things in your life. And just want to touch base on some notes here. Make sure I cover everything. Right, so just want to talk about another event. This was in Fresno, California, and I'm at a parade. I'm at it's called Nagar Kirtan. It's a Sikh peace parade, and this is where the Sikh community gets politicians and all the members of the community get together and they do a peace parade. And it was at this parade I met a white gentleman and I asked him, "What do you think about racism? Do you think it's an issue today?" And he goes, at this point we already know each other well, and then he goes, "Mr. Panu, what are you talking about? Racism? Things have gotten way better. Look at the Civil Rights Act. We have the first black president now. Racism, it's getting better. Things are great. Don't worry about it." And the thing is, majority of white people, when you bring up the word racism, when you bring up issues like religious discrimination, they go, "Don't worry about it. It's all good. It's all dandy. It's all fine and dandy." No, that's not right. Racism and discrimination is still going on today with Sikhs, especially Sikhs, because they're being targeted as Muslims. And that is an issue. In June, Hani Ramadan and I will be doing a interfaith dialogue about our two faiths in June, so please feel free to attend that. And we just need more education because of 9/11, Sikhs have been browbeaten and racially targeted, profiled, simply because the media portrays anyone with a turban and beard as a terrorist. And that's completely wrong. So for that reason, because majority of Sikh men wear turbans and beards, 99% of turban-wearing men in the U.S. are of the Sikh faith. They are not Muslim. Get that in your head, please, because it is a true fact, and it just needs to be known. And with that, I conclude my talk. Thank you.